It was the night before Halloween, and the small town of Shadowfell was bustling with excitement. All the children were dressed up in their costumes, ready to go trick-or-treating. But this year, something was different. As the children made their way through the winding streets, they noticed something strange. Everywhere they looked, they saw plants. Big, strange plants with strange shapes and bright colors. Some of them were even moving, as if they were alive. The kids were scared, but they decided to investigate. As they got closer to the plants, they realized they were being attacked. Zombies were attacking the plants, and the plants were fighting back. The children watched in horror, as the plants used their roots to grab the zombies and yank them to the ground. The zombies tried to take bites out of the plants, but the plants fought back with their vines and leaves. The children screamed and ran away, but the battle between the plants and zombies continued. The entire town was soon engulfed in the chaos. The next morning, the town was a mess. The plants had won the battle, but the town was destroyed. The streets were filled with broken glass and debris. The children were afraid, but they soon realized that the plants had saved them. The zombies had been trying to take over the town, and the plants had stopped them. The townspeople thanked the plants and vowed to take care of them. They gave the plants a special place in the town, and the plants soon became a part of the community. Every year, on Halloween, the townspeople celebrate the valiant plants that saved them from the zombies. They decorate the plants with bright colors and have special parties in their honor. The town of Shadowfell is now a safe and happy place. Thanks to the brave plants, the townspeople can celebrate Halloween without fear. Plants vs Zombies, a Halloween party gone wrong. It was a dark and spooky October night. The moon was crescent-shaped and the wind was chilly. All the plants were gathered together in the garden for their Halloween party. The pumpkins were carved, the music was playing, and the decorations were hung. Everyone was having a great time, and the plants were enjoying their Halloween fun. Little did they know, however, that they were being watched. Lurking in the shadows was a group of zombies. The zombies had been planning to crash the plants' party, and now was the perfect time to do it. The zombies crept forward, their eyes glowing with hunger. The plants saw them and gasped in horror. Before they had time to react, the zombies had already started attacking. The plants tried to fight back, but they were no match for the powerful zombies. The attack went on for hours, with the plants barely managing to hold their own. Eventually, the zombies seemed to tire of the battle and began to retreat. The plants cheered in relief, thinking the worst was over. But the zombies had one last trick up their sleeves. They had planted something in the ground before the attack and now it was about to bloom. Suddenly, the ground began to ripple and shake. Out of the ground rose a massive creature, taller than any of the plants. It had a huge, razor-sharp mouth and a spiky head. The creature was a giant zombie pumpkin. It had been created by the zombies and was now under their control. The zombie pumpkin let out a loud roar and the plants scattered in terror. The zombie pumpkin went on a rampage, destroying everything in its path. The plants tried to fight it, but their attacks were useless against its thick skin. The zombie pumpkin seemed unstoppable until one brave plant came up with an idea. The plant grabbed a nearby torch and lit it. Then, it threw the torch at the zombie pumpkin. The pumpkin was engulfed in flames, and it let out a loud screech. The flames spread quickly, consuming the zombie pumpkin, until there was nothing left but ashes. The plants cheered in triumph. The zombie pumpkin had been defeated and the plants had won the battle. They celebrated long into the night, thankful that their Halloween party had not been ruined. The next morning, the plants surveyed the damage. The garden was a mess, but the plants were determined to clean it up. As they worked, they talked about what had happened the night before. They were thankful that they had been able to come together and fight off the zombies. The plants knew that, without their courage and teamwork, their Halloween party would have been ruined. They vowed to never let the zombies ruin another one of their parties again. The plants went back to their work, happy to be alive and safe. They had won the battle against the zombies, but they knew the war was far from over. The plants' Halloween bash. The plants had been planning for weeks. It was Halloween and they wanted to throw the best party their little patch of soil had ever seen. Everyone was invited, even the neighboring zombies, although the plants weren't sure the zombies would be interested in celebrating. The night of the party came and the plants were all dressed up and ready to go. They had set up decorations, a buffet, and a dance floor. The plants were excited to see all their friends and have a good time. But as the night went on, the plants started to realize that something was off. They noticed that the zombies were missing. The plants thought that perhaps the zombies had decided to stay away from the party because of their differences. Little did the plants know, the zombies had been watching them from afar. As the plants were partying, the zombies had been plotting their attack. When the plants finally noticed the zombies' absence, they had already begun their assault. The zombies had stolen all the plants' possessions and were heading into the past to escape. The plants were angry and scared, but they knew they had to act fast if they were going to stop the zombies. The plants quickly gathered together and began to formulate a plan. They decided that if they followed the zombies back in time, they would be able to catch them and get their possessions back. The plants had never traveled in time before, but they knew they had to try. They gathered their courage and jumped into their time machine. The plants found the zombies in the past, but they were not alone. The zombies had brought along an army of undead creatures to help them in their mission. The plants knew they had to fight if they wanted to get their stuff back. The plants and zombies battled for hours, but eventually the plants managed to come out on top. They were able to retrieve all of their possessions and send the zombies back to the present. The plants were relieved to have their stuff back, but they were also exhausted from the fight. They decided to call it a night and head back to the present. When they returned, the plants were shocked to see that the party hadn't stopped while they were away. All their friends were still celebrating, and they had even set up a special area for the plants to rest and recover. The plants thanked their friends for their kindness, and then celebrated the rest of the night away. They all laughed and danced and enjoyed the rest of the Halloween party. The plants never saw the zombies again, but they always remembered the night of their Halloween bash. It was a night they would never forget. It was a starry night on Halloween, and the plants in the area were having a party. Every kind of plant was there, from pumpkins to sunflowers, and even a few cacti. They were all excited to be celebrating together, and to have a break from the usual routine. Suddenly, the party was interrupted by a loud, raspy growl. The plants all turned to see what was happening, and their faces turned to horror as they saw the zombie horde that was descending upon them. The zombies were all wearing spooky costumes and had a wicked gleam in their eyes. The plants scrambled to form a defensive line, using their leaves and stems to create a formidable wall. The zombies lunged forward, but were unable to break through. They howled in frustration and began to retreat. Just when the plants thought they were safe, they heard an even louder and more sinister growl. This time it was coming from a zombie witch. She was wearing a black cloak and a pointed hat and had a huge, crooked nose. The witch raised her hands and began to chant an evil spell. Suddenly, the plants were surrounded by a thick, black fog. The zombies disappeared in the mist and the plants were left alone and terrified. The witch cackled and began to move closer to the plants. She raised her hands and pointed them at the plants, preparing to cast a spell. Just then, a voice pierced through the fog. It was a voice the plants recognized. It was the voice of the Pumpkin King, the leader of all the plants in the area. He had come to save them from the zombie witch. The Pumpkin King summoned the other plants, and told them to join him in battle. He had a plan to defeat the witch, but he needed their help. The plants all agreed and began to gather their weapons. The Pumpkin King then recited an incantation, and the black fog began to dissipate. The zombie witch was revealed and the plants attacked with their weapons and magic. They were determined to protect their right to have a Halloween party, and to keep the zombie witch away. The plants and the zombie witch fought fiercely, but in the end, the plants were victorious. The zombie witch was defeated and the plants had saved their party. The plants celebrated their victory, and thanked the Pumpkin King for his help. They went back to the party, and the night was a success. The plants were free to enjoy the Halloween festivities and celebrate their victory over the zombie witch. The plants were having a party. The sun shone brightly in the garden, and the plants were finally ready to celebrate. After months of hard work and tending to their garden, the plants could finally let loose and have a party to celebrate the end of summer. The pumpkin plants had grown their largest pumpkins yet, and the sunflowers were bright and cheerful. The corn stalks rustled in the wind, and the tomatoes were plump and juicy. All of the plants had worked hard to make the garden a beautiful place, and now it was time to enjoy the fruits of their labor. The plants set up a picnic blanket in the center of the garden and began to prepare their favorite snacks. The tomatoes were diced and mixed with onions, garlic, and herbs to make a delicious salsa. The corn was cooked and buttered, and the pumpkins were hollowed out and filled with a sweet and creamy filling. Everything was going perfectly until the zombies crashed the party. The plants had heard the rumors of the zombie horde, but they had never seen them before. So when the horde of zombified myths started to march through the garden, the plants were terrified. Witches, werewolves, vampires, and other creatures of the night were all marching through the garden, their eyes glowing with an eerie hunger. The plants knew they had no chance against the horde, so they quickly hid in the shadows and watched as the zombies feasted on the garden. The pumpkins were the first to go, their sweet flesh devoured in seconds. The corn was ripped from the stalks and thrown into the air, its kernels scattered across the garden. The tomatoes were squashed and mixed with the dirt and mud, creating a gruesome soup. The plants were horrified, but there was nothing they could do. They could only watch as the zombies destroyed their garden. Just when the plants thought all hope was lost, a voice called out from the shadows. "Do not fear, plants. I am here to help you." The plants looked around, but all they saw were the shadows of the night. Then, from the shadows, stepped a figure wearing a cloak and carrying a scythe. It was the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper waved his scythe in the air, and the zombies stopped in their tracks. He then pointed his scythe at the plants and said, "Do not fear, plants. I am here to help. I will take the zombies away and give you back your garden." The plants were amazed. The Grim Reaper had saved them from the zombie horde. He then turned to the zombies and said, "Go now, you have no power here. Return to your graves and never bother the plants again." The zombies obeyed and slowly retreated, leaving the plants to pick up the pieces of their garden. The Grim Reaper then vanished into the night, leaving the plants with a newfound appreciation for life and the beauty of their garden. For the rest of the night, the plants celebrated their victory and enjoyed the fruits of their labor. They ate their snacks, played games, and laughed until the sun rose. Every year since, the plants have celebrated Halloween by having a party in the same spot in the garden. They celebrate the Grim Reaper's gift of life and the beauty of their garden. They also remember the zombie horde and the courage it took to survive that night. For the plants, Halloween is a reminder that no matter how dark it gets, there is always light at the end of the tunnel.